I just got done completing a Grandmaster Nightfall with this build, and this build slays everything. You're going to generate a lot of light and darkness transcendence energy, which will give you even more of an ability regeneration. And you're just going to be exploding every single enemy around you because we are doing a consecration build on Prismatic. I think that this build will dominate everything end game content related, or any activity in the game, if I'm going to be honest. Just anything in the game, it will dominate. Expert Onslaught, Grandmaster Nightfalls, Master Raids, etc. You're also going to be stunning every single champion in the game, and the best part about this build is that you do not need an exotic weapon for this build. So let's first head to the exotic armor piece we're going to be using for the build. A lot of people really do not like to use the exotic class items, and what's cool about this build, you don't really need to use it. I just chose it because of the additional perk that will be provided for this build, and that perk that will help us even further is Spirit of Inmost Light. Using an ability empowers the other two abilities, granting them improved energy regeneration. So hear me out, you do not really need to use this perk for this build. You can also transfer or change this armor perk for this other one that would help you specifically in Grandmaster Nightfalls, and it's called Spirit of the Assassin. Finishers and power melee final blows grant invisibility, but currently for me and the gameplay that you were seeing on screen, I was running Spirit of Inmost Light and Spirit of Syntheseps. And here's what Spirit of Syntheseps does. It would improve your melee damage when you're surrounded. It would give you a 165% increase in melee damage. But if you are one of those people that are choosing to run Syntheseps instead of you using the Titan exotic mark, it would also increase your super damage up to 50% when you're surrounded. And also for this build as well, for your super, you can change it as you please. You don't really have to use what I'm using, but I just prefer using this super. And might as well, we're talking about what super we're going to be using. Let me show you. The super that I chose to use is Thunder Crash because this thing slaps with damage. You're mostly going to be using this on high value enemies like champions, yellow bar enemies, and bosses. And if you don't like to use Thunder Crash, you could also use like Glacial Quake or Blade Fury. Those are the two that I would prefer rather than using Thunder Crash. And again, you can use any super you like. Let's head to the abilities. For your melee, go for Frenzied Blade for those 3 melee charges because this is a consecration build. So the more melee charges we have, the more booms we will be unleashing in the battlefield. And if you were to get a kill with your based Frenzied Blade, it would also drop a tingle, and that tingle will also give you darkness energy. And the more enemies that get hit by that tingle will give you even more darkness transcendence energy. And same thing goes for the grenade we're going to be using, which is an additional way to stun unstoppable champions, which is a shackle grenade, because the weakness for unstoppable champions is suspend. So all you would have to do is toss your shackle at an unstop or any enemy, and as soon as you kill him, he will drop a tingle as well. So any strand debuff will drop a tingle no matter what you are using. All right, here is the main aspects you're going to want to be using for this build. The main one is consecration. If you guys don't know what it does, basically whenever you run and slide, and then as you're sliding, activate your charge melee to launch yourself into the air, and it would release a wave of solar energy in front of you. And if that enemy gets hit by that scorching flame, be sure to activate your charge melee again to slam your hammers onto the ground to unleash another wave of solar energy, and then that enemy that got scorched will ignite. And we also have another fragment that would make consecration explosions even bigger. And the other main aspect you're going to want to put is knockout, because this will also increase your melee range and damage for a short time while you are critically wounded or whenever you break a shield with your melee attack. And as you're getting melee kills, you're also going to be proccing this buff called Amplified that will increase your movement speed, and it will increase your weapon handling for a short time. And if you were to defeat more powerful enemies, the amount of health you will receive has been increased. So let's talk about how much HP you're going to be receiving when killing enemies. If you were to kill a red bar enemy, it would give you 50 HP. If you were to kill an elite enemy, it would give you 75 HP. And last but not least, if you were to kill a mini boss, it would give you 100 HP. And the damage increase you're going to be getting is a 100% increase in your basic melee damage, a 50% increase in your charged melee damage, that is the consecration, and it would also increase your melee lunge distance up to a 5.5 meter distance. What's also cool is that your basic melee attack would now count as an arc powered melee hit for 6 seconds while knockout is active. So once you have those two aspects, we're going to be getting 5 fragments in total. Here's what you need to run if you want to be a god tier Titan Slayer. For your first fragment, be sure to go for Facet of Ruin to increase the ignitions from your consecration, and this will also increase the shatter from your stasis crystals as well. But in this build, build, we're not going to be using any stasis crystals, mostly ignitions. You're also going to be getting plus 10 mobility. The next fragment will actually make you survive even longer, and it's Facet of Protection. So whenever you're within 15 meters for 3 or more enemies, it would give you a 15% damage resist. And once you proc your Transcendence and also this fragment, you would also bump it up to a total of 32% damage reduction. And you're also going to be getting plus 10 strength. The next fragment is Facet of Blessing. So whenever you get a melee final blow, it will start your health regeneration. While you are Transcendent, melee final blows will start health regeneration for you and your allies. The next fragment is Facet of Justice. This is the one that will make your consecration explosions become even bigger. So while you are Transcendent, your ability final blows will explode, and you would also get plus 10 intellect. And last but not least, I chose to put this fragment specifically towards our primary weapon. We'll get onto that later. And this fragment is called Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Powered melee final blows makes you and your nearby allies radiant. But sadly, you get minus 10 strength, but hear me out. Strength is pretty useless. All right, let's head to the weapons for the build. For your kinetic weapon, this is the main weapon that would help you generate a boatload of darkness transcendence energy. And if you choose not to put this weapon on, you're going to not be able to get an 100% uptime for your transcendence. This weapon is called Lost Signal. This is a stasis grenade launcher, and this is an area denial frame. And for transcendence energy, you're going to need to deal a lot of damage specific to either light or dark. And this grenade launcher will tick damage, and that is extremely good when producing darkness energy. And we also have many ways to produce light transcendence energy because with our abilities and with our primary weapon as well. So here are the perks you're going to need to run for the Lost Signal. On the third column, go for auto-loading holster. The holstered weapon is automatically reloaded after a short period of time. So all you would have to do is either ADS or hip fire. Once you run out of ammo, swap to your other weapons and just shoot like whatever, and then this will fully reload. On the fourth column, go for Vorpal because this will increase the damage against bosses, vehicles, and guardians with their supers active, and this will give you a plus 15% passive increase in damage for this weapon. The origin trait for the Lost Signal isn't really important, but here's what it does. It's called Radiolaria Transposer. Rapid final blows will cause the target to explode into a pool of radiolarian fluid. That is that Vex milk that you would see on the floor. And for the weapon mod, I went for Tactical. It would grant increase in reload speed and handling. Yes, this does increase our reload, but I chose to put it for handling just to swap it faster. For the energy weapon, I chose to put this arc pulse rifle called Vantage Point that came out in Revenant. So this is an adapted frame, so it is a well-rounded grip, reliable, and sturdy. For the third column, you need to go for is Edge Current. Temporarily increases reload and handling after sprinting or while amplified, because in this build, we're going to be getting amplified most of the time. So it's going to give you 20 reload speed, a 0.95x reload duration multiplier, and while you're sprinting, it will refresh the buff duration. And while you are amplified, it will remove the sprinting requirement and increases your reload speed stat to a bonus of 60. On the fourth column, you need to get this perk on the Vantage Point, and it's called Jolting Feedback. Dealing repeated damage with this weapon inflicts jolt at an increased rate. While you are amplified, jolt is applied faster, which is pretty nice. So the amount of hits for you to proc this perk on the Vantage Point is 14 shots. But if you are amplified, it would be 10 shots. And as you're jolting the target, you will actually stun overload champions. For this origin trait on the Vantage Point is called the Dark Ether Reaper. Whenever you get a final blow with this weapon, it would periodically spawn a Dark Ether charge. These charges can be detonated early with weapons fire or by coming into contact with them. Doing so will refill the magazine from reserves. It's kind of like overflow if you were to destroy that ether orb. For the weapon mod of the Vantage Point, I would recommend going for either heavy ammo finder enhancement that will increase your heavy ammo drops when in the battlefield, or you can go for this other one called Synergy. Final blows with this weapon will have a chance to create an elemental pickup. So this is arc, so it would be an ionic trace that will reduce our ability cooldown. But we have seasonal artifacts that will give us ionic traces. For the power weapon, you can go for any weapon you like, but for me personally, I really enjoy using the VS Chill Inhibitor because of this perk called Envious Arsenal. Dealing damage with both other weapons before readying this one will refill it from reserves. The next perk you're going to want to get is Bait and Switch. Deal damage with all equipped weapons within a short time to give this weapon a damage boost, and that damage boost is a plus 30%. And the duration for the damage buff for bait and switch is 10 seconds. And for the weapon mod, be sure to go for backup mag to increase your magazine size. All right, here are the seasonal artifacts I was using for the build. So these artifacts will primarily buff your grenade launchers like the Lost Signal and the Chill Inhibitor, and for any arc weapon, in my case is the Vantage Point. So the two artifacts that will buff Vantage Point is Retinal Burn, rapid arc precision hits, consume an armor charge to blind the target, and blinding will also stun unstoppable champions. And the next one is Trace Evidence. Rapid precision hits or rapid final blows on targets affected by jolt or blind will generate an ionic trace. This is the one I was talking about when it comes to that weapon mod synergy. And there's actually another one that I forgot to mention, and it's called Enhanced Ether Generator. Basically, instead of pooping out one ether orb for the origin trade, it will now poop out two. And for the other two will benefit for your grenade launchers, and this one is called Concussive Reload. Using a grenade launcher to damage a boss or damage a champion or break a combatant shield will weaken them. So the weakening effect on that target will last up to 20 seconds, and the damage increase you will inflict on that weakened target is 15%. And the next one is Kinetic Impact. Sustained damage with a powered grenade launcher will cause the combatant to emit a shockwave that damages nearby combatants. This shockwave can stun unstoppable champions. So all you would have to do is hit the target 5 times within a certain amount of seconds to activate this artifact perk. And as what you're seeing for the artifacts, I chose not to put Unstoppable Pulse Rifle because we already are using a Shackle and our Consecrations to stun unstoppable champions. So this Pulse Rifle will be able to get anti-barrier rounds because of the fragment called Facet of Dawn. That's why I chose to put it like that, so we could be able to stun every single champion in the game for this build. And also, I did put Overload Breach Loaded Grenade Launcher, so that would tie to the Lost Signal for this build. So for the stats, I do recommend going for Resilience because this is primarily towards endgame content for this build. So by having tier 10 Resilience, it would give you a 30% damage reduction. And the second stat you can go for is Discipline. That will decrease the cooldown of your grenades. Enough me talking way too much about this build. Let me just show you all of the armor mods that I was using for the build. So if you guys would like to check it out, it would be right here. You can just take a screenshot if you like, or the dim link will be in the description if you are interested. So let me show you guys the gameplay loop for this build. So step 1, your goal is to produce tons of Transcendence energy. So what you're going to have to do is get your Lost Signal and shoot as many enemies as possible to produce those Darkness Transcendent energy. Then afterwards, you can either use your Consecration to give you that light energy, or you could use your Vantage Point as well. And once you have your Transcendence ready, activated, and unleash hell spawn, basically just go crazy and just have fun. That's basically it for the gameplay loop. If you guys did enjoy this build video, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe and let me know what you think about this build if you tried it.